Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I drop my kid off at school and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is Wednesday, April 10th, and I am walking home on this unseasonably cold April day. When we recorded a month ago in March, had the weather been like it is today, high 30s or low 40s, nose snifflingly chilly, I wouldn't have been surprised. But boy, April 10th, it's too late for it to be this chilly. Oh well, stop whining. Well, today's going to be kind of a mishmash. I don't have a clear, solid idea of what I want to record, but I do have a couple things I wanted to talk about. Just kind of see where those shake out. First is, I had a very enjoyable play of Terraforming Mars last night. I played with two new players, one very experienced player, and me, who I would put myself at. I know how to play, but I'm not that experienced yet. I mean, I've played maybe 5 times, a couple of those solo. But we tried out the Prelude Expansion, which I can totally see those of you who say, never again without it. I can totally get why. It basically just jumps the game ahead a couple rounds. You get a couple cards, you get to pick from a mix of cards and decide which ones fit the strategy you want to go for. And it just gets the game going faster. I think it's really useful and important. So I agree. And I agreed enough that I just mixed the Prelude stuff in. It's not separated anymore. As of right now, the Colony stuff and the Venus Next stuff are separated in my collection. Although next time I play, I probably will put the Venus Next stuff back in, because it just adds more variety to the game, which I find enjoyable. It's part of the fun of a game like Terraforming Mars. Every time I play that, I enjoy it more, which I think is an interesting phenomenon to experience. The Dice Tower just recently released a top 10 list of top 10 games that they enjoy more. They keep getting better, games that they enjoy more every time they play them. But then it's interesting when they talk about the games, like a couple of them just kept saying, that's why this game is evergreen for me. And to me, a game that I enjoy playing every time I play it is not a game I enjoy playing more every time I play it. I would say Terraforming Mars, at least for me, still is on the ascendancy. Every time I play it, I enjoy it more. Because I'm getting to know it better, and there are a lot of nooks and crannies in there. It was particularly interesting this last game because I thought I was doing very, very well, and I ended up in 3rd place. Just because I wasn't attending to the things I should have attended to. I got one of the initial awards, and I had pretty locked in 2 of the contests. One of them, thankfully, another player gave to me by not realizing how much of the resource I had. But probably 2 or 3 rounds before the end, I could see that I had a secure lead in those, and I had time to recover it if someone started chasing me. So it would have made more sense to pivot away from those strategies in the last couple of rounds and lean into, say, one of the other strategies that could get me points in a different way, since I had already locked down those points. I don't think it would have been the difference between winning and losing, but I would have made a better showing than I did. That said, one of the things I love about that game is, at the end I had a crap load of cards in front of me and I had done all this cool stuff. So even though I didn't do very well points-wise, I had a lot of fun. And I had built this thing. So, I guess segment 1, Terraforming Mars just keeps getting better. Looking forward to playing Colonies sometime soon and trying out the other boards. And then I'm told there's a Kickstarter coming, which it would be really nice if it had a box that was big enough to hold everything, and perhaps an organizer that held everything nicely. I don't know if I'm willing to pay for an organizer. I might make one out of foam core. But I'm a little hesitant to do that while they're still releasing expansions. So anyway, Terraforming Mars, enjoyable to keep playing. Segment 2, playing with my son. So I've mentioned my daughter a few times and my son a few times here on the podcast. My daughter, who's 13, has always been an intense gamer. She's enjoyed games since I started trying to get her to play them when she was 6 or 7. I started with easier games and worked my way up. But by the time she was 10, she was doing just fine in terms of the more complex games. The games that have a lot of levers to pull, she still doesn't do quite as well. But the games that have slightly fewer, so like the Vladimir Suhi games, I can still outrun her most of the time. But pretty much anybody else. I haven't played any Stefan Fell. Well, we played Aquasphere, and she held her own in that. So she can play all these games just fine. The really complicated ones, often she's not doing as well, just because she's not spending time thinking about them the way I do, I think. I suspect if she played games as much as I do, she would kick my butt all over the table. But she's an easy enough game to player to figure out. She's an omni gamer. She likes most every game. My son is a different beast altogether. So when I was walking him to school today, he said, "How's it going?" I said, "Good, but I don't really have a solid theme for my podcast today, and I do feel like recording one." And he said, "Well, talk about me." So I'm taking him up on that suggestion. He is amazing, as he wanted me to remind you. So I asked him a few questions about what are some of his favorite games and why. And for favorite games, he picked out 2 that are his current favorites, and that would be Rampage, or Terror in Meeple City, and Rainbow Nights. So Terror in Meeple City is a dexterity game about big kaiju destroying a city. It's from Seven Wonders by Antoine Bauza. It's from Antoine Bauza, and it's about kaiju destroying a city. It's got a really neat table presence because you build these towers of meeples, and then you're flicking these little kaiju pieces around, and you're knocking over buildings, and you're eating up the people that fall out of the buildings. And it's really a set collection game. Your goal is to get sets of meeples of different colors. That if you get, there are 6 different colors, I think. For each set of 6 that you get 10 points. And otherwise, they're like 1 point apiece. And so you get an awful lot of points by getting the sets. Actually, some of them are worth 1 point apiece. Some of them aren't worth anything if they're not in a set. The difference between a winning score and a losing score is often significant if one person got a lot of meeples and the other person was getting points other ways. Because you get a few points for destroying buildings, and you get some points for attacking the other players. Most importantly, when you attack the other players, you knock out their teeth, and then they can't eat as many meeples. So the attacking is an important part of the balance of the game, because if you don't take out the other player's teeth, then they eat up all the meeples too fast, and you lose because you didn't get enough meeples. So I asked him what he liked about that, and he said he thought the board was interactive, and what I came to understand there is that there's something to do in the game. Another game he really likes is Flick 'em Up. And again, I think this is because it's a physically interactive game, right? Dexterity as a main component. He also described Rampage as not that competitive or not that aggressive, which I will say, as he and I tried to tease out what he meant by aggressive game a bit more, I can't really articulate his definition of it, because to me an aggressive game is one where I succeed by pulling you down. So Rampage to me is an aggressive game because I can see where he comes up with partially aggressive, because you can just focus on eating meeples and knocking down buildings and not worry about the other players at all. That said, he also said Pokemon wasn't that aggressive, because your Pokemons don't die when they're defeated. They go in your discard pile where you can recover them. To me, that was that's a very narrow distinction that doesn't articulate what I think of when I think of an aggressive game. Often for me, aggressive games are zero-sum games. So area control games are inherently aggressive, because if you control the area, then I don't, right? Which is maybe that's why I like Cerebria so much, is that I recognize it as directly competitive, versus a lot of area control games that have Euro mechanisms feel like they aren't competitive or aren't competitive in the same way to me, or they feel like I should be able to get points without attacking the other players too strongly. And I don't like to attack the other players unless it's clear that's what you're supposed to do. So if I am able to attack the other players through, if the game tells me I have to attack the other players, like I think I mentioned in a previous episode, Nexus Ops is a game where attacking the other players is the thing that you do, then I'm going to do better if I understand that's what it's for and I understand how to do well at it. Often in area control games, I don't really have a lot of trouble grasping how to get control of an area. I will spend too much energy and way overproduce for a particular area, or I won't spend enough and then I lose. So maybe that's what keeps me coming back to them. So that was one thing he really liked about Terra and Meeple City, was the interaction. And then the other game he said was Rainbow Nights, which the two aspects of that he said, he really liked that you build the board as you play. If you haven't played that one, it's a sort of like Tron, it's like a Tron light cycles. You play these characters who are flying along, leaving these kind of colorful paths in your wake. And you're flying into a restricted space of the board, and your goal is to keep flying as long as you can, till you use up all your cards, or until you're still flying and no one else is, because you've blocked them all. It's a pretty simple game. It's a speed game. There's a little bit of dexterity, but mostly it's speed and quick thinking. The thing that I like about it in sort of in concert or in connection with that is, or the thing that he likes is that it's fast too. He said that one of the things he likes about it is the whole game is 5 minutes to 10 minutes. We often play best of 3 or first person to 3 wins or something like that. So if you're playing with a group of 4 or 5, first person to 3 wins is maybe 10 minutes. But really a game takes about a minute, then you shuffle up and you play again. So it's a nice little diversion. And I can see why he likes it, in part because it's short. So I asked him a little bit about what games he doesn't like, and it was interesting to hear him talk about, he doesn't like games that go too long or where the theme is uninteresting. So he talked about one game I've had him play a couple times that I thought he enjoyed, because he said he did, was Colony, from Bezier Games. It's I think it's a Tom Lehman title. Where you're rolling dice and you're trying to build a colony, and as you build cards, it's an engine builder, you get more cards that will help you roll more dice. It's a nice one. I have that and Favor of the Pharaoh, and honestly I probably don't need both, although I like them both. So that's something he doesn't like. In part he said he thought it was too long. So it'll be interesting to see whether I can find a game what kinds of games I can find to continue playing games with him. One of the things he and I talked about was he really liked, when we used to play Agricola occasionally, he really liked the animal husbandry part. So I've got a pal who has Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small. I'm going to borrow that and see if maybe that's a winner for my son. So that's 2 random topics for the day. Hopefully this was somewhat interesting. I'm going to release this one while I'm in Iceland, so greetings from Iceland, I guess, and hopefully you found it edifying. So what's on your mind lately? What are some things you've been talking about with your loved ones about games they like? How do you figure out what games to get so that you can play games with your friends, family, children, spouses, significant others, etc.? How much does your thinking about their taste shape what games you buy? That's my question for the day, I guess. Pop over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and tell me your answer to those questions so that we can have a talk about it. Thanks for listening, and I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.